This is not a mythological creature, but a real animal, living in the far corners of the Indonesian islands. A predator unlike any other, unchanged for millions of years. This is a Komodo dragon, Earth's last living dragon that can grow up to 3 meters long and weigh more than 70 kilograms. Its jaws are armed with 60 sharp teeth for catching prey and tearing flesh. The predator's saliva contains dangerous toxins that can melt human skin. In addition, it is known to attack and devour adult humans along with their children, and it also has a strange addiction to deer carcasses. It seems like this must be some kind of scary monster, right? But no, this is just a Komodo dragon. It sounds terrifying, but how many of these facts are true? What does science have to say about them? And most importantly, are Komodo dragons really dangerous for humans? Let's sort it all out in today's episode. For thousands of years, people knew about the existence of giant lizards only from fossils. But here's the weirdest part. They still don't know exactly where these reptiles came from and how they managed to survive. According to the available data, ancient ancestors of modern Komodos were ordinary marine lizards. Over time, they moved closer to land, gradually turning into terrestrial predators. However, at some point, they split into different groups and the Komodo dragon lineage ended up isolated on the island of Komodo. Scientists suggest that this happened about 4 to 9 million years ago. But how did this reptile manage to preserve its population for so long? In the mid-19th century, an English zoologist even believed that Komodo dragons could have lived on Earth since the time of the dinosaurs. But the truth is much simpler. In fact, Komodo dragons didn't split off until relatively recently, only 170,000 years ago. Until that moment, they simply coexisted with other giant lizards that eventually went extinct. The remains of these creatures were found on the neighboring islands of Sumbawa, Flores, and Gili Motong. Some scientists believe that there was a single species of giant lizards that had a huge distribution area. But over time, they began to die out due to various reasons, such as climate change or volcanic eruptions. Perhaps the ancestors of modern Komodo dragons also died out, but a small group managed to survive on the island of Komodo. The main thing is that starting at about 170,000 years ago, the population began to rapidly increase again. At first, Komodo dragons could look like small lizards, but within a few tens of thousands of years, they grew to enormous size. Scientists estimate that the process of their evolution was influenced by the abundance of food and the absence of natural enemies. For a long time, scientists couldn't explain why only Komodo dragons grew so big, while other lizards remained tiny. So, what's the reason? Paleontologists have discovered that the Komodo dragon went through a period of very rapid growth, gaining up to 3 kilograms per week during the first year of its life. Other reptiles don't have such growth rates. To identify the genetic cause of this acceleration, scientists compared the genome of the Komodo dragon with that of the green anole lizard, which grows much slower. They found a gene called KDR that is responsible for the rapid growth of Komodo dragons. This gene produces insulin-like growth factor, which affects body length, weight, and overall size. There are also several genes that may be related to gigantism, but they haven't been fully studied yet. Most likely, thanks to these genes, our dragons received tremendous growth potential, which allowed them to reach impressive dimensions. The next fact we want to discuss concerns the appearance of Komodo dragons. Many people claim that these animals look like dragons from myths and legends. But if you take a closer look at these reptiles, you'll notice that they actually resemble iguanas more than dragons. The name dragon in their title is purely conventional and appeared because of the resemblance of these lizards to mythical creatures. By the way, initially the Komodo dragon was called the Komodo monitor lizard. The word dragon was added to the name much later. Even scientists who study Komodo dragons prefer to call them giant monitor lizards. They belong to the genus of monitor lizards and the family of agamids. The closest relatives of Komodo dragons are the 5-horn and 3-toed agama lizards. Yeah, they look completely different. However, genetic studies show that they're still related. Now, let's move on to the most interesting part and talk about whether Komodo dragons are dangerous. Do they often eat people? No, Komodo dragons do not actively hunt people. They rarely attack people if there's enough ungulate prey around. When hungry, they can go after humans, and deer carcasses are just perfect bait for them. You can imagine a hunter walking through the forest, spotting a deer carcass, approaching it, and getting bitten in the leg by a Komodo dragon. If the bite breaks the skin, the hunter risks being poisoned. Yes, Komodo dragons have poisonous saliva, and if a person gets infected, he or she will develop a high fever, weakness, and severe pain in their gums. Then bleeding, tissue swelling, and blood poisoning may occur. Death comes within a few hours. And since there are no antidotes to this poison, the only option would be plasma transfusion. However, even then, survival is not guaranteed. That is why the dragon's bite can be fatal. But Komodo dragons don't actually aim for a lethal bite. They just bite and hold on to their victim until it runs away or collapses from exhaustion. They also deliberately spread their poison to increase the chances of getting a large meal. I know you probably think that Komodo dragons behave like snakes when they inject their poison, but it's not quite true. After all, they don't have fangs. Instead, bacteria that cause infection get into the wound and multiply there. Sometimes bacteria can enter the bloodstream through damaged blood vessels. This happens about in 25% of cases. A person bitten by a Komodo dragon needs urgent medical attention. And now I'm going to share one more important thing with you. A person bitten by a Komodo dragon in the water should try to stay afloat until help arrives. The fact is that the dragon's poison loses its effectiveness in salt water. Therefore, the sooner the bitten person ends up in the ocean, the better. I hope that one day Komodo dragons won't pose a threat to humans anymore. Scientists have already managed to clone one of these lizards, which means that in the future, endangered Komodo dragons can be bred in captivity. And perhaps someday we'll be able to return the dragons back to their natural habitat. You might think that I've told you all the most important things about Komodo dragons, but no. There's one more. These reptiles have a unique ability. They can recover from injuries that would be fatal to other animals. They have amazing regeneration abilities. Lizards can regrow not only their tails, but also their limbs and even parts of their jaws. What's even crazier is that new limbs appear in place of the old ones, and not just any limbs, but symmetrical ones. How do they manage to regrow body parts? While scientists don't know exactly how they accomplish this, they've learned that this process occurs at the cellular level. New organs grow from special undifferentiated cells, which means that lizards literally create new body parts out of nothing. To date, only 2 species have demonstrated such regeneration abilities, and both are members of the enigmatic family. One of them is the green antelope lizard, and the second is the Komodo dragon. Scientists are still figuring out the mechanism behind this process. But in any case, it's safe to say that Komodo dragons don't just regrow lost body parts, they actually improve them. For example, newly grown tails are thicker at the base and narrower at the tip, which makes them stronger and more flexible. The same goes for their limbs. Their joints become more mobile and stronger. And don't forget about their jaws. They grow faster and stronger. This means that if a Komodo dragon loses a few teeth while eating prey, it'll soon have sharper and stronger teeth than before. It's unclear if other reptiles can boast such regeneration abilities. And even if they can, they definitely don't do it as quickly as Komodo dragons, so these lizards are truly unique. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe for more wild stories and hit the bell so you never miss an upload. See you next time.